So when I was making my October list of upcoming horror thrillers, there was a film called Rumours that popped up on that list, and it said it was going to be a limited release and whatnot. And I did not expect to see it in our theater, but it actually did come to our theater. And it has Cate Blanchett starring, it has Charles Dance, and it has Alicia Vikander. So I was like, okay, it's got a hell of a cast. It's got a really high rating. It has the horror label on IMDb. It is at our theater at a time we can go. You know, we are watching tons of other things, but I was like, you know what? You know, it wasn't that long. It was only like an hour and 40. So I was like, screw it. So we went in completely blind.
Yes.
I had only seen like one image from this movie and was like, okay, that looks like it would be something that's like horror comedy-esque. So we'll see. So this is about the G7 summit, and the world leaders get together to discuss the world's problems. And while they are having their little dinner discussing the world's issues, everyone else seems to go missing.
Yeah.
And so they have to try to figure out their way back and look for help. And along the way, they run into some strange goings-ons. Okay, so this is from a director named... there's 3 directors on this, but Guy Madden seems to be the one that people are the most attracted to here from this project, from his other work, which I'm not familiar with at all. 3 directors on one film is very rare, unless it's like an anthology. You typically don't see that many directors. 2 is usually the limit on like a single narrative. So 3 directors on one narrative is kind of odd. But anyway, this is a super bizarre movie that, you know, you can get lost in 2 seconds, right? Like a lot of what they're saying. Now, do I get what they're getting at here? I think so.
I think so,
right?
Yeah.
Like, I think they're kind of poking fun at ineffectual leaders and how trite what they think and say are. And there's some very straightforward symbolism of like what we think of them in the horror antagonists.
Yes.
So like I got all of that, but you know, at first I was laughing. I was having a good time with it. About maybe 20 minutes in, I was like, okay, like I'm having a good time. This is fun. It felt like a very highly intellectual British dark comedy. And I was like, okay, like it's not usually my style of humor, but I was vibing with it enough. There was some funny things going on between like the Prime Minister and, you know, whatever. But I don't know. Around that part, from there on, I really just kind of got lost in it and was like, not in a good way, where I was just kind of like not entertained anymore. And really just, I kind of felt it was pretty up its own ass. And it just, for me, I just lost all entertainment for the most part. There was definitely some what the fuck moments that kept happening that kept me engaged enough. But I did find myself fairly, you know, disconnected from this one in so many ways throughout. Now, do I think people are gonna, like, some people will love this movie? Yes, this has a very, very specific audience, and I think that audience will love it. We were in a theater with one other guy, and he was laughing quite a bit. He seemed to be really into this.
He was super into it.
But he did get up to go to the bathroom, I think, like, so many times.
He did.
I don't know what he was doing, but the amount of times he got up and left the theater was actually like part of the experience, because I was like, again, you might want to get your prostate examined, bro. Like, how many times are you pissing in a fucking, I don't know. But anyway, it's nor here nor there. I don't know. I definitely would never, I wouldn't want to use the word pretentious towards the film, but I definitely think a lot of people who watch this will 1000% be like, this is the epitome of pretentious.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know. I definitely was entertained, but I felt like pretty lost a good amount of the film as well.
I didn't know what the fuck they were saying half the time.
It's a very...
But that's kind of the point.
Yeah, well, yes, that is definitely the point. Like, the conversations that they're having are supposed to, like, emulate the, like, the stupid, like... It's not corporate, but that like political like language,
jargon.
Yeah, like that kind of thing where you're just like everything you're saying is empty. Like you're just using fancy sounding words and trying to make yourself seem like smarter and like you have everything figured out. So there's a lot of that in this movie, which definitely was
the majority of the film. Is
which like you're kind of like, okay, but they're saying nothing to each other, which is like the
humor,
point, and that is what's funny about it.
But it just gets old.
But like as far as like what is happening, I have no idea. I have no idea, like what happened, and I don't think you're supposed to know. I think it's supposed to be metaphor. Symbolic. I think it's supposed to be very wacky and weird, like surreal, and that's kind of part of the point. So I found it really entertaining for sure. And I ultimately, like, my takeaway from it, like, I do agree with the message as far as like what the conversation about politicians is ultimately, and like world leaders. But and there's some like very memorable imagery too. Especially with the antagonists. I don't know what's going on with them. I don't understand a lot of that. But I don't think you're supposed to have like a definite like interpretation. Yeah, I think it is supposed to be kind of up to what you think. And there's things in it that like are meant to explain. You know, like there's definitely some lines of dialogue that I think you could use to be like, oh, well, this is definitely like this and like blah blah blah. But
yeah, this will be that kind of film that's going to be, you know, gone back and forth on between the film lovers of this style of filmmaking, on like, he was trying to say this or they were trying to say that, and they'll, you know, bicker back and forth at each other like what the real deep message within is. But it's all just meant to be satirical and
very absurd. That was the word I was kind of trying to look for.
Is an extremely absurd film.
Yeah, it's very absurdist.
I don't want to reveal what's going on with like the threat, but it's very juvenile in an otherwise very like serious, like prestigious type of like, you know, feeling of a film, because you have like Cate Blanchett and Charles Dance. You have like all of these like thespians that are talking very eloquently about big issues, and then there's all of this absurdity going on around them, and like everything that they're saying is so hollow and vapid. So but it sounds pretty. It sounds like, oh my god, they really have it all figured out. So like, as I said, I feel like I got it for the most part. It kind of ran its course for me too quickly. Like, I kept waiting. Like, so with the antagonistic issue or elements of the movie, if we could have ramped up more of that stuff and really got more bizarre with the horror elements, because the antagonistic side of the story is the horror stuff. And the whole like tone of the film has a horror atmosphere to it, but it's all like comedy. Like the whole film is a comedy, but with a horror atmosphere to it. And the antagonists are very much horror villain kind of stand-ins. But there's no like gore, like any of that kind of stuff in it. There's no jump scares or anything like that at all. But it just, if we could have got more insanity to keep, you know, a mouth breather like me more entertained and distracted, like with a cat toy in front of me. So I'm like, oh, look at the pretty lights. No, I don't know. It ran thin. But I will say I'm not a fan of like British humor. That stuff doesn't work for me. Probably because I'm a dumbass. I don't know. It just never has. I know people who are like super into like the Monty Python stuff and anything British. And I watch it typically and I'm always just kind of like, yeah, like I get it. Like I get the joke. It's witty.
Yeah.
But it's never funny to me. I'm always kind of like, yeah. It's like how my kids respond to my dad jokes. They're like, oh yeah, that was really witty, Dad, but that's not funny. And then they're like, you know, this guy hitting his head is fucking hilarious. And I'm like, that's not funny. What I said is funny. So yeah. Anyway, that's how I felt. I felt like my kids listening to dad jokes all night and being like, the first couple were all right, but Jesus Christ, Dad. So yeah, that's the way I feel about it. That's my rumors on the situation.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, man, these are those kinds of movies though. We talk about them all the time. Anytime we go see like The Green Knight, or we ever go see these bizarro art house style films that are released in a theater. Now, granted, there was no one fucking there.
There was one other person.
There was one other person who maybe left for half the film to piss or take phone calls or fucking, I don't know, smoke crack. I have no idea. But if you were to show this to a general audience, they would fucking hate it.
I think they would hate it, but I also could see people like laughing because they'd just be like, "What is this?"
They'd be laughing at the absurdity of it, but not because they like liked it. They'd be like,
"That was
entertainingly terrible." That's like the way
I think
they would
so.
see
Yeah,
it.
I think so. It's definitely an art house film for people that like that style of movie.
Yeah.
You definitely want to be the kind of person that would enjoy it, because otherwise I think it'll be a total waste of your time.
This will be, I have a friend, his name's Daniel Siegel. This is going to be like his fucking favorite film of the year, I guarantee it, because this is always the types of movies. He's like, oh my God, these are masterpieces. And I'm like, more power to you. I don't get it. That's it for me. Rumours. In theaters now.
Yep.
Let us know if you see it, and we'll see you in the comments. Adios.
Bye.